Okay, today we're going to start on a little pixel art type of project. So let's start off with we're going to go to Piskel, Piskel app.com. And if you'll notice when we first get here, there's some examples here that you could just click on any of these and you could kind of see how they were made. So, if you want to see how this one was made, you click on it and notice that every frame there's just one slight little difference. If you'll see the white starting to come in, and they've just made a little bit of white in one of the little patterns that they just brought in. That's just one thing they've done. And then up here is a preview of what's going on. So that's just a quick look of what somebody else has done. I'm just going to hit the back button for a moment. Up here, yours should probably say sign in unless you've already worked with this before. And if you've already worked with this before, it'll just have your Google sign in. So just sign in with Google, and then it might ask what Google account you want to use. Just click on your school Google account, and then you'll have a gallery. You probably don't have anything in here yet, but you can save stuff to gallery, and that's pretty cool. You got like online cloud storage just with your Google account. So we're going to hit Create Sprite for right now, and we'll just work on some of the tools. First of all, let's talk about color palettes for a moment. Okay, so in color palettes, you can create a new palette by hitting the plus bar down here. And we're going to go ahead and let it start off with black. I'm going to call it Temp 2 just because I can. And then I'm just going to go ahead and click on this, and then I'll change the color. I'll change the first one to red, and I'll click on another one, and I'll change one to blue, and I'll click on another one, and I might change one to a yellow of some sort. So as you can see, I can just kind of keep clicking on colors and change them until I just say save. And you'll see that down here, there's a Temp 2 that I'm allowed to use. And if I save more than one, I can go ahead and get my last palette, or I can pull down and I can grab Temp 2, and that's perfectly cool. So I'm going to just use these colors for this particular one. So I'm just going to run through a few things that we can do. So right off the bat, some of you will notice that if I pick the smallest pen and I draw, it's still pretty big. If I pick the largest pen and I draw, it's absolutely monstrous. And the reason for this is the fact that our pixel is only 32 by 32 pixels dimension, and that's pretty small. So if you want it bigger and you want your pen to draw smaller, you have to go over to where it says resize. That's over here, looks like a little arrow pointing to the upper right hand corner. And if you hit resize, and now depending on how big you make it, now maybe we'll make our 64 by 64, and we'll just say resize. And this here anchors it either in the middle, at the bottom, or whatever else. So if I anchored at the bottom and I hit resize, you'd see that my picture gets smaller and it went to the bottom. If I resized again, and this time I anchored in the middle and hit resize, my picture in general should flip to the top, but it didn't have anything in the middle at that point in time. So now let's take a look. Our big pen is smaller, and our smallest pen can actually draw a little more fine now. So again, that resize, and if it's still not good for you, again, that resize, we can go over here again. We can go, let's go up again. Let's go to 140 by 140, and this time I'll put the canvas content in the upper right-hand corner, and I'll hit resize, and you'll see that it'll go in the upper right-hand corner. And again, now I can draw even with a smaller, finer pen. So that's pretty important. Let's go from, I think most of this stuff you should ID. I'm going to switch to color red for a moment. The vertical mirror tool just draws a symmetry line right down the middle, and whatever you do on one side of the symmetry line, it does on the other. All right, pour paint's pretty typical. Pour pixels of all the same color, pretty typical, but I'll just show you. If I hit the yellow and I say replace black with yellow, everywhere there's black, it'll replace with yellow. Eraser tool. All right, if the eraser is not big enough, you just go to the resize tool up here and you erase more here. If you want to erase a whole bunch, you can actually use this down here. It's called a rectangle selection. You do your rectangle selection and you do a whole bunch like this, then you could probably either hit the delete or backspace button and it will all disappear. So that's one thing. Just click off of it to get rid of it. If you want to move things around, you can just use the hand tool and grab it and you can move it around. If you want to center it, there's actually a thing over here that says center the image on the page, and if you hit this, it'll center the image based on what it thinks is the middle. Add a new frame over here, and notice it starts blinking because this is actually what's going to happen is it's going to show these frames in succession. So at 12 frames per second, and you can slow this down a little bit if you want to, 1 frame per second. So every second it's going to go from one frame to the next. Now, if we draw anything in this second frame, let's do something first. There's a clone tool that says I can clone. And actually, I just made them. Let me edit, undo, Control Z. Control Z is undo. Please remember that. It'll be your friend. If you want those shortcuts of keys, they're down here. You can kind of look through some of these and get an idea of what some of the keyboard shortcuts are. And then I hit Control Z, and now I'm going to go on this layer, and I'm going to say clone to all layers. And if you'll notice, that'll show up in the next layer. The easier way to do that is just to duplicate this frame. And then we could change each frame, and you would see instead of a static picture over here, it would animate a little bit. So if I chose the second frame, and let's say I just used the hand tool and I moved it around, and now you'll see, especially if I speed this up a little bit, you'll see that it's jumping back and forth because I moved the second one. All right. If I wanted to rotate one of the pictures, I could rotate one of the pictures with this tool, or I could go up here on this tool and I could use the mirror flip and I could flip it horizontally. Okay, so there's several things that we can do. Typical square tools, typical circle tool. This is select an object thing. We'll get to these later. I know how to use these, but it's been a while, so I'm just going to leave those go for right now. And just want to get you in the habit of, we're going to make different. If you don't like a layer, you can trash it. And again, that'll change your image over here. And so just kind of get used to what's going on in here. I saw one other thing that I might want to show you today just for giggles. If we go to preferences, there's something called grid. And I can turn a grid on and off, and I can make grid colors in here if I want to. So if I want to make a grid dark blue and make a grid size of 1 point here, maybe should I go up higher? It doesn't appear to be what I'm looking for right now. So I'll do that on another video. But for right now, that's pretty good. And don't forget, down here, this is where you would take the picture somewhere else. This is where you would import a picture that you might trace over. And this right here is save. Make sure you hit save. You can name your Piskel here, temp, or even trimp, and you can save to my gallery. And that means when you go to your gallery, you'll see that that new picture shows up in your new gallery. If you want to delete it, there's always a delete button here. If you want to go back in and edit it, there's an edit button here. But that's pretty good to get started. Thanks.